Welcome back, guys. Small update today, not a whole lot. Got some more work done on this parallax system. I don't know if you can see here, there's a concentric ring of basically a mesh that acts like a billboard, except it's a ring, so it's always facing in. There's no software keeping it pointed at the viewer. There's math as far as how far they should be apart and whatnot, but I haven't gotten into that yet. The rings, they're just a simple mesh, nothing going on with them, but they do have to have a little bit of I guess scale applied to them, so they're essentially the same object. The one thing you do need to do is keep the vertical scale the same. It's just the horizontal scale you want to change, and then flip direction on the texture. So even though it's the same repeating texture on both, it looks very different. Now, last time I was driving around, we could see this, and I'm just gonna start this here right now. Okay, good, I went full screen. So it's just spawning a tank or two. Maybe 3 will do. Now last time you saw that we can move the tank and drive it and everything, and that's great. I was playing around with, and I'm not that good at it, with this glowy stuff here, which looks absolutely horrible at night because it's supposedly reflecting moonlight from somewhere. Is actually one of the Unity water shaders. Obviously, I'm going to need a better shader for that, but yeah, that's the creepy, eerie water shade. Oh, look, it's not stretched perfectly. You can see underneath it on this corner. That's funny. Anyhow, it looks a lot better in the daytime. I don't think it was ever intended to really be used at night. But this is the water shader itself. Been trying to get the day-night cycle and the sun. There's like a built-in shader that dictates how the generated skybox changes and whatnot. I need to have a better look at that and get the nighttime lighting better. But I mean, for the day, the water shader looks just fine. It's when it goes funny at night. See, it's picking up a moonlight reflection that doesn't exist. So you've got that ghostly, foggy water look. So I'm going to have to do some more research into that and see what better water shaders there is, because that is not my forte. Also, the water is essentially a plane, and then the shader renders a bit above that and whatnot. But there's no wake or anything like that in the water. It doesn't make. There's no waves or foam. I'd actually have to do that foam particle trick for going through the water. But yeah, anyhow, that is that so far. I've changed some of the stone textures for painting on the mountain things. Looking a little bit better, mixing up the textures. But more importantly, let's get in the tank, because this is the way the parallax air type works. Actually, we can almost trigger a little bit of it here with the tank, just a little bit of it, I think. So you see those two tanks, and the fact that they appear to slip behind one another based on their apparent distance. Well, the industrial weird city in the back should be doing the same. There should be buildings that appear to just pass behind each other. Now, some of those buildings have gained a weird halo. That's interesting. I have to check the way that those buildings were drawn. But yeah, they should be passing behind each other. We're about to drive over a cliff here, I think. We're up way too close, yeah. But yeah, it should appear like buildings in the background. There you go. You get that weird, the closest sliding in front of the back. but we're never intended to be this up close to that. The building textures themselves are supposed to be a little bit further away. So here it looks like you're in a kind of like a weird wasteland in around an industrial area. And I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to put some map stuff. I'm gonna have to put some coordinate stuff in the mini map down there. I'm not sure about that. Let's have a look here. Let's hop in a different tank. Everything else is working. Jim got me set up with. I think I'm shooting over it. Yeah, I am. The elevation is just different enough to be skimming over that tank. Look at that. Let's see, can the barrel be lowered? Oh, yeah, we finally got him. Yeah, so it might not look a lot different on the surface. There was a lot of code that was done. I was referencing things wrong inside code. Let's just stop this. And go to the scripts. Let's see if this loads up here in any kind of time. I think, I can't remember if this is on my SSD or not. I think it's actually on my hard drive backup disk. Somewhere down in here I was referencing, before I was trying to get the sub part of the tank by name, this part I just highlighted here, and it uses a string search function to search through the components of a game object to locate it by kind of like a name and by kind of like an internal path structure to get there, to kind of speed up the search, but it's still a string compare. What I'm still not used to in Unity, and I'm starting to get there, is the different scripts kind of like little fragments, almost what I would akin to a shader fragment in the past. So some of these scripts literally live as instances on the different objects, and you can set certain things to be one, where is it, static. So if it's static, that means there's only one version of this variable for all instances of the script, but everything else, there's a version of this variable for every instance of Tank Manager, which is actually on every tank. Then when I realized Tank Manager also has a reference to the current tank and has a reference to tanks, in the lookout camera, it has those references. So when I came down here, if the current tank has a reference to current, which is a tank, and the tanks had a reference to main tank control script, which is this one. Every tank, sorry, has this, the control script, which is how to control a tank. That meant this, which has an actual direct reference to the turret elevation object, I was able to simply give the camera's current target to be basically the center of the turret. So, or the barrel, sorry. The little hollow object that the barrel attaches to, that helps with making the gimbal or the movement of the turret and the barrel look like it should, instead of getting all weird and passing through common pivots that really shouldn't exist. Allows you to have an offset from center barrel. I guess would have been simpler to say it that way. But that's also a great thing to mount the camera on. What this does is it changes it from just being the center of the body of the game object or tank, because that's what it originally was when Jim had it set up to show me. I needed it to be a child of the main gun, and the first way I did it, which was down here, was to use the transform find, which finds the any sub object that or child object, and you can even give it a path, because you have to go levels deep. So I was saying, in the tank body, within the turret, on the barrel. So it was doing all the time those text searches, whereas I actually technically never needed to do the search. I already had a way to reference the object directly without doing the search. And this is a concept I'm just going to have to beat into my head, because it's different from the way that I used to program when I did stuff in C. I made my classes different, and I referenced things differently, and I didn't think of little scripts running almost simultaneously, and that's the best way to think of it here, is to think some of these scripts are actually parts of the prefab that is this tank. Actually, that one, I can delete that. That one was the bad. Let's just save that while I remember. But when this runs, for me, it was hard for me to remember that every tank that I'm loading in here has copies of those. They have copies of that script running, and that's why right now, if you look, it has the each one of them is running the control script, which proves that the script is actually taking control of the turret on the tank. Now I'm perfectly in control of this tank. Oh, I forgot. The last thing you've touched with the up here in the UI, that's something I'm going to have to maybe fix. The last thing you touched of a button up here and you hit space, it re-triggers that button, so I'm going to have to see. There we go. And of course, we can replace any of the artwork, like the particles and whatnot. So yeah, the turret system and everything that's on the tank right now is fully controllable. I plan on doing a little bit more of a mouse driving system, because it's all keyboard right now. And then later I have to look at the auto navigation, so it's the auto driving, setting waypoints using the navigation mesh, but having it drive realistically, so it needs to be able to use the same driving inputs that we do. Apparently that's fairly easy. Apparently Unity makes that fairly easy. I'll have to have a look at that, and then we start getting into AI. I'll be on the edges of looking into AI, but what I'd also like to be building at the very same time now that you can hop the instances of tanks in the world. Well, let's make another one. So it's replaced tank 0, because down there it says it added tank 0. So if I go to the next tank, I'm on tank number 3 of 32 slots, so we're back on tank 0. So the way the game is now, we're actually ready for tank spawning. Well, we are tank spawning, but we're actually ready for the point where if it was multiplayer, we could spawn in other tanks. The other thing I want to work on the artwork for, and then have Jimmio help me out with setting up, is to be able to mount a missile or a rocket pod right here on this sort of flatter side. So what I was thinking is kind of like one of those trapezoidal or whatnot, sort of anime style rocket pod, and have that to be able to function and have the base graphics set in for homing missiles, and then I can go around and replace those things later with different art and make a more concentrated effort to make better tanks and whatnot. I mean, these were crude sketches. But yeah, that's kind of like where we're at, what I kind of want to do. So art-wise, I'm going to be trying to figure out how to better control the day-night cycle effect. Mostly the way that the shader changes if you try to hide the sun at night. I don't know if we're going to see it here. I might just let it loop through while I'm doing this. When the sun goes below the horizon, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you want to say, it stays on. So sometimes there's an effect of the sun going below the horizon. There can actually be like an illumination from below, because the ground is well, it's transparent. It's only one direction. So if you get close to the barrel, I don't know if we can see here. No, because it's the one side. There's actually bright illumination from below. I think that might be why the water stays bright like that. It's kind of weird. Let's see this tank. I don't know if you can see. There's kind of an ambery glow from the sun from underneath on the bottom of the barrel. The moon seems to be working as intended. It's working all right. The default skybox shader works great. I need to have another look at making maybe the high quality sun, the better quality day-night cycle. But what I was hoping to do was to be able to reduce the sun. Now apparently by me turning its brightness off altogether passes the shader for the day-night cycle to the moon, so all of a sudden it's like there goes the sunset, all of a sudden there's a brand new dawn, and it's the moon coming up triggers the shader to flick over to daytime. So I'm not sure what I'll do in there. That's sun control. I think I'm just going to do this right now. You guys are connected. No reason not to. Maybe instead of setting it to 0, I'll just try setting it to 0.25, which is actually what the moon's default is, I think. So let's just see if I buggered this up, because if it did, you're about to see the error that I was getting, and I'll figure this out. Let's spawn in a couple tanks. Might as well have a couple. Actually, what we'll do is we'll spawn in a ton of tanks. Just for funsies. I'm driving one of them. Oh, that's the one I'm driving. Okay. Ooh, I think it worked that time. It did work that time. That was my mistake. Okay, there isn't much moon. Moon. The moon is too low. There we go. Yeah, so the moon needs to be at 18. Okay. Go back like this. Oh, why did it do that? Oh, it stopped the game. So what is the moon set at here? It's 0.25. It's there. Okay. Okay, so there's the moon. Alright, 0.25 light intensity if it goes below. I'm going to have a run at this, but it would be neat to see why the moon intensity drops so low. Let's bop in a bunch of tanks here. I'm just going to go up to max tanks just for the sake of fun. Ooh. Jeez. I just found another bug. I have no maximum of tanks to bring in. I can spawn in as many as I want. Okay. Now, I did that wrong. Anyhow, I'm going to sort this out. As you can see, we put in 45 tanks. We gonna be able to have a lot of tanks, and it wasn't dropping any frames here. What obviously I need to do is put the unit cap on the add tank. Oh well. So they're all spawning in quite close together and quite high. Let's just add a ton of tanks. It's raining tanks. If you're an army nut, this is probably awesome for you. Alright, somewhere is the tank I'm driving. Let's hop in it. No, alright. Let's grab another tank. See if we can get one that's right side up. Oh, we did. Yay, we found one right side up. Right, now why the intensity on the moon has gone down to this. Moon Y. Yeah, it's fighting that. Okay. Moon. Okay, light control. Now, original intensity is too low, so it needs to be like 0.2. There we go. Let's keep driving around here. I don't have my my stats visible. Yeah, 23 frames per second. So let's start shooting some tanks. See if I get my frames per second back. With the whole UI in the game running, there's a lot of overhead for this, but I'm just gonna blast some of these tanks. So yeah, the moon does look like it's rendering better, so I need to have it about 0.2. That's good. So I fixed that. Let's just start blowing away these tanks. So yeah, these tanks seem to consume about 3 or maybe 5 frames per second each. This is not an optimized script. I mean, I'm just using some of Jim's code, and I'm sure he'll go in and fix it up. Like, I don't have to render the visualization of those the hover thrusters. That's just so I can remember when I do artwork where the virtual thrusters are underneath the tank. For the way that Jim coded it. Like, see, I have no idea how many tanks we have, but I mean, we're getting back into playable frame rates of 60 again, and there's still a mess of tanks. So every one of those tanks is live and trying to do something. So of course, getting rid of some of the debug stuff. Yeah, 100 FPS is the. Okay, now the water still looks weird at night because it's still being lit by the sun. But what's happening, I think now, if I do this correctly and I grab the sun, we see the sun has gone down to moon intensity while it's below the yeah, it can't be adjusted at runtime, so I'll have to make that a variable. Make a new variable like dim2. So now the sun has gone full bright just before it comes above the ground. So now you have your proper daylight. You see all the physics still running on those tanks. We're still at about 110. Now I have an i5 750. It's old. It's first generation i5, and I have a Zotac GTX 1050 Ti that is currently running at well, right now it's only running at 1304, but it will go up to 1709, and I don't have any funny overclocks on it, so I kind of lucked out on video cards there. And I got it before video cards went stupid priced at all, so my 1070 actually was, or my 1050 was at 1050 pricing. But anyhow, yeah, we'll just blow some more stuff up because even though they're default particles, they're still fun to look at. And yeah, the mini map and all that. I wonder how many frames per second does a mini map consume? 1. Okay. Anyhow, guys, we debug some stuff. We know that original for the moon, this needs to be like 15, or maybe I think I had it as 0.2. We also know that we have original intensity. We should have a new one. Dim intensity. Copy. And we will put that is down here. Dim intensity, and we're going to call that I don't know. We'll save this. And we will go to the moon, or we'll go to the sun as it's loading, and the dim intensity will be 0.05 maybe. Give that a shot. And the moon, its dim intensity will be 0.001 because we don't want it to even show up really. And now we'll run this. And I think this is recording longer than I intended, but oh well. It's a little look into how my brain works. Spawning a bunch of tanks. I'm not going to go nuts this time. Of course, the one I last spawned in is upside down, so no luck. Oh, found one. Okay, so the sun is working fine. Great. We're not getting that weird inversion of the sun. The sun's actually behaving properly. What was happening before is the sun was going underneath the horizon, and the sky shader was turning the moon into the new sunlight because I was turning the sun off completely. What was the moon intensity at? The moon's at 0.2, so what we could do is up its original intensity here to maybe a 0.4. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's what we'll do. We'll make it to 10.35, so we'll just stop that. And see, now that I've made the dim intensity there, by doing this, for those that have not used Unity, it now makes it show up into your editor here. So you can, in the object inspector, you can play with this at runtime. I was watching, I think it was Bracky's, had a tip on make the tint of your editor change color to remind you that you're in play mode, because any edit you make over here while you're in play mode is non-permanent. The moment you exit out, it goes back to whatever you had set. So now we have original intensity of the moon is only 0.35. We shut the moon almost totally off when it's underneath the ground. In the sun, we have that original intensity is full bright, and then when it goes under the ground, we have it as 0.5. We could probably lower that to be almost off, and that would probably work, but I'm just going to leave it at 0.5 because it looks good for now. So I'm going to save this and call it done for now. And again, thanks for watching. This one went a little bit longer than I expected, but I guess that let you guys see what I was up to and have a look at where this is so far. If you like this kind of stuff, don't forget to like and subscribe. I do have some other things on the go as far as electronic stuff that will be coming up soon, but I'm definitely getting back into the game building kind of stuff. For those of you that know my channel for a long time ago, that's predominantly what I did. And I know the last little while there's been a lot of the sort of hacking and electronic stuff that has come up projects. There's reasons for why I stopped doing a lot of the code, and a lot of it had to do with, well, I'm going to say, the death of the old engine that I used to use. Other news, I have a new motherboard and CPU. Essentially, we'll say a new computer on its way. It's not going to be anything amazing by standards, but it is, to my stuff, it'll be probably the fastest machine in the house that I've had. It's going to be a Ryzen 1200 on a B350E or B350M-E board, I believe, ASUS one, and it's going to have 16 gigs of 3000 hertz, 3 gig G-Skill RAM, and a new power supply, an actual Corsair power supply, and that will be put into the machine that I'm running now. The guts of this machine are going to go into an old Lian Li case that I have that has an old Athlon board in it, and we'll use that machine as a server for the house and a few other things, and it's going to get its old, really old ATI card that can't do anything newer than DirectX 9. That's going to go in it because that box is only literally going to be used for some video stuff and that, and it's not even going to need a whole lot of 3D. In fact, this stuff won't be running on that. It'll just be like a, I don't know how to put it, but like a job server. It will be doing rendering and stuff while I'm working on this. So while I could have gotten one big Ryzen chip that did everything in one box and gotten rid of the old hardware, the other thing I could do, which is very simple, is I will now have two machines. For those of you that have not seen my setup, it's kind of a bit of a cobble together. I've got a 1080p center monitor, and then I have twin Samsungs that used to be side by side on my old setup. I'm now set up in like an L sort of configuration. There's one atop of my center monitor and one over to the right, and that's where I have my other supporting software. Like I've got OBS recording right now, and I've got Discord and that open, and my audio control stuff. But I might get into my setup later if anybody has any interest. I'm pretty sure it's pretty boring. Anyhow, this has gone way longer than I intended, so if you're still listening, you're definitely hardcore for this stuff and interested. Again, thanks for watching. More crazy, weird, different stuff coming in the future. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you did like this stuff and you can put up with my rambling. Yay. You got to see me do a tiniest little bit of debugging / coding. And as I fumble my way through Unity, any of you guys following, ask questions or whatever, and we can fumble together. I do have a really good Unity Pro as a friend who's been helping and guiding and building a lot of the base stuff that I'm working up from, and that's how I learn. I need to see something functional. I can't just sit there and look at a document. I need to have somebody that has built something that I can ask them, why did you do this? And so this is where I am, and I'm bringing you guys along with, and thanks for coming, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.